Yo, what's going on? Welcome into the show. This is Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. My name is Chase Sr. We have people watching the program from every pocket of America and worldwide. And as always, no matter where you are or how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. There's a lot to talk about. I know the peak of NFL free agency has died down a little bit, but there are still some really notable players left in the free agency market that Philadelphia could still sign and add to this roster for the upcoming 2025 season because the Eagles still do have some remaining needs. And then, of course, the NFL has become a year-round sport at this point. NFL draft coming up in about a month. 2025 NFL draft coming up at the end of April. So we'll do some draft talk as well here on the program. But oh my goodness, I see producer Chip to my left going crazy. We start the show with a $500 super chat. And it comes in from Jonathan E. Frog. E-A-G-L-E-S Eagles! Fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory. Fight, Eagles, fight. Score a touchdown, 1, 2, 3. Hit 'em low, hit 'em high, and watch our Eagles fly. Fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory. E-A-G-L-E-S Eagles! Jonathan E. Frog making it rain. That one came out of nowhere. I mean, we literally just started the show, and Jonathan E. Frog sends in the $500 super chat. He's a champion. The Eagles are champions. Jalen Hurts is a champion. And oh my goodness, what a way to start the show. By the way, if you're ready to talk some Eagles here, I need you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. And everybody type J in the chat for Jonathan E. Frog. I'm going to do that right now. A J in the chat for Jonathan E. Frog sends in a $500 super chat to get us started. Unbelievable stuff right there. Are you kidding me? Jonathan E. Frog making it rain. And of course, he was our big dog during NFL free agency, which is why we're sending him that Eagles, what were we calling it again? That you put on the wall?
It wasn't
Not a blanket.
It was kind of like a tapestry. Almost.
Tapestry. That's why we sent him the Eagles tapestry. Why we're going to send him some Eagles jerseys. And everybody celebrate Jonathan E.
Come on.
$500 super chat to get things started. Can anybody match that? If anybody matches a $500 super chat from Jonathan E. Frog, I'm just going to take down a beer boot. 3 beers, 1 boot, because that's just unbelievable stuff right there. More than 100 people watching live, and if you're just joining us, you see the breaking news here. Jonathan E. Frog. $500 super chat, biggest super chat of the offseason. Boss man Brett, he even comes in. He's clapping it up.
Jonathan
E. Frog. What it do? Big dog. Woo, woo. Yeah. Woo, woo, woo. The big dog is here. I know. Nobody else is starting a show like that today on YouTube. My gosh. Mailbag time, by the way. We'll be doing that with segment number 3. Get those questions in right now. Use the hashtag Eagles or send in a super chat. Got to get some questions together in order to do that mailbag. So, again, use the hashtag Eagles or send in a super chat. We have 126 people watching right now. More people will come into the stream, obviously. I'm talking to all 126 of you. If you have a question and you want to talk Eagles, you can get on our mailbag. You have a great opportunity to let your voices be heard, your faces be seen on this Wednesday, March 26th of 2025. And I'll say this too. Somebody else matches Jonathan E. Frog's $500 super chat with the $100 super chat. I'll shotgun a beer. Jonathan Efrog, if you're still in the building, get some people going. All right, if you're ready to talk some birds, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon, like the video. Going to start off with some Eagles draft talk because we're going to go through all of the prospects who are visiting Philadelphia for their pre-draft visits. We'll do some free agency talk for segment number 2, taking a look at 6 players who the Philadelphia Eagles could sign, and then we will round things out with a mailbag. 130 people hanging out, only 25 likes. Be a real one right now. Hit that thumbs up icon, like the video. We're talking birds, and the official show starts right now. Here we go. Welcome into the show. This is Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. My name is Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. What we're getting into, going to go through all of the Eagles pre-draft visits as of right now. The list of known prospects going into the 2025 NFL Draft that the Eagles have met with or are set to meet with. And I'll tell you this. This is pretty significant because since Howie Roseman took back control of the front office after Chip Kelly basically banished him out of the building, pre-draft visits have been an indication of the Eagles' first-round interest. So Chip Kelly took back control of this Eagles front office player personnel back in 2016. That's when the Philadelphia Eagles drafted Carson Wentz out of North Dakota State after they moved up a couple of times up the draft board and took Wentz after Jared Goff. And Carson Wentz took a pre-draft visit to Philadelphia. In 2017, Derek Barnett, the sack master from Tennessee, he also visited the Eagles in the pre-draft process. In 2018, Philadelphia traded out of the first round. In 2019, the Eagles surprised a lot of people by drafting Andre Dillard out of Washington State. Started off rough for him. He had admitted that he was dealing with some mental challenges. Then he played pretty well. Then he signed a big free agency deal with the Tennessee Titans, and he ended up being a huge bust. He did not go on a pre-draft visit to the NovaCare complex in South Philadelphia. Unfortunately, Jalen Reagor did, and then the Eagles took him ahead of Justin Jefferson, but the following year, Howie Roseman was able to right his wrong, and he took Devontae Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner, who goes down as one of the best wide receivers in the history of college football. That year was unique. There were no pre-draft visits allowed because of COVID-19. How far we've come since then. My goodness, what a disaster that time period was. 2022, Eagles took Jordan Davis, moved up in the draft to take him right ahead of Kyle Hamilton. As of right now, hasn't been the best pick for Philadelphia, but Davis did attend a pre-draft visit with the Eagles. In 2023, Philadelphia tapping into that Georgia pipeline for the second consecutive draft, and Howie Roseman took Jalen Carter, number 9, Nolan Smith, number 30, and both of those players were in the city of brotherly love for pre-draft visits. In 2024, Eagles took Quinyon Mitchell in the first round out of Toledo. They got the best corner in the draft with the 22nd overall pick. And Quinyon Mitchell was on a pre-draft visit to the Eagles. So you get the point here. Since 2016, 7 of 9 first-round picks for the Eagles have been on pre-draft visits with Philadelphia. That's 77% for Howie Roseman and company. And so we flip the page to the list of pre-draft visits. These are players who have visited with Philadelphia or are scheduled to meet with the Eagles. Josh Connerly, offensive tackle out of Oregon. Marcus Bow, offensive tackle out of Purdue. Anthony Belton, massive offensive tackle out of NC State. Jalen Travis, the Iowa State product, also an offensive tackle, so a lot of offensive linemen there. Maxwell Hairston, a speedy corner out of Kentucky. Elijah Roberts, edge rusher, SMU. They had a great year, ended up making it to the college football playoff. They obviously fell short in that first round in Happy Valley against Penn State. Donovan Izirku. I've been trying to get this pronunciation right all day. Iziraku, I think, is the proper pronunciation. Got to go through it a couple of times. But talented edge rusher out of Boston College. Tyler Barron, edge rusher, Miami, the U. Jaden Blue ran a sub-4.3 40-yard dash at his pro day. Very talented running back out of Texas. He is set to meet with the Eagles. And then Charles Grant, small school guy, William and Mary, he played offensive tackle there. Could be another developmental project for Jeff Stoutland. So, plenty more to get to here on the show, but today's poll question is this: which position do you want the Eagles to draft in the first round? They have a couple of different needs. A lot of people have different preferences. They should just go best player available, in my opinion. But what position do you want the Eagles to draft in that first round? Let me know down in the comment section right now. You see, I'm rocking my Eagles Super Bowl gear. You can get yours right now at chatsports.com/EaglesSB. There is so much available thanks to our friends at Fanatics. But when you use that link down below, Fanatics knows that Chase Sr., Eagles Now, and Chat Sports sent you. There are shirts, there are hoodies, there are hats, there are jerseys, and plenty of different options available. We've been pushing this for a long time, and for our audience watching in every pocket of America and worldwide, they've been able to take advantage of those deals. It's chatsports.com/EaglesSB. Celebrate that Eagles Super Bowl 59 championship after they routed the Kansas City Chiefs by getting your merchandise today. Going to put that link down below in the show notes and attached to the pinned comment of today's Philadelphia Eagles. Now, so as far as these pre-draft visits go, let's talk about all of these prospects here. Josh Connerly, offensive tackle out of Oregon, in the pre-draft process at the NFL Combine, earning an 8.77 relative athletic score grade. A little bit short for an offensive tackle at 6'4", 311 pounds. The weight is fine there. Very athletic, good vertical leap. That short area explosion, I think, is always important for an offensive tackle because it's an indication of how they can get into their pass rush sets. And at that weight, he ran just over 5 seconds in the 40-yard dash. Sometimes his play strength consistently can be a little bit of a problem. I'll tell you what, though, he had some really good reps for Oregon this past season as the Ducks made that transition to the Big Ten. And in the Big Ten, you're going up against some of the top defensive linemen in the country. Overall Pro Football Focus grade of 78.1, pass blocking grade of 83.5, run blocking grade of 72.5. Only gave up 1 sack, though, and 4 penalties. Only 6 hurries allowed. And he's a player who I wouldn't want the Eagles to take at 32. I think he's better slated as a second-round selection. But, of course, that's within range for Philadelphia if they decide to trade out of 32 to get an additional second-round pick. What I think Howie Roseman does, I don't think he trades out of 32 to move back. I think if Howie were to do that, he likes the value of the draft board, and maybe he would move up. If you go back and watch the Big Ten championship game, by the way, Josh Connerly had a really strong game against Abdul Carter. Good rep after good rep after good rep. Abdul Carter is my number 1 player on my big board going into the 2025 draft. I think he's a freakishly talented edge rusher. And so for Connerly to hold up well against Abdul Carter, very impressive. And that's a sign of what he can become. For Marcus Bow, another player whose play strength sometimes lacks consistency. And his athleticism, it's not the end-all be-all, but it is at least something. And last year, he did have some moments where he looked really good. He had some moments where it's questionable as far as what his upside is at the next level. What's good about him, his positional versatility. In college, he played right guard and right tackle. Plenty of snaps at both of those positions, and he even sprinkled in a little bit of left guard, too, in the 2021 season. This is a player, of course, again, that Jeff Stoutland can mold into a really good player. His PFF grade's not as good as Josh Connerly, but solid. 73 overall grade, pass blocking grade needs some work at 68, run blocking grade of 77.2, 3 sacks allowed, 5 penalties. As far as the hurry numbers go, this is where that lack of quickness is concerning to me and why I think he might be better as a guard potentially as compared to being a tackle. He gave up 21 hurries. There's also a mountain of a man who the Eagles are meeting with in the pre-draft, and that's this man right here, Anthony Belton out of NC State. Had an opportunity to catch up with him at the NFL Combine when I got wind that he was going to meet up with the Eagles, and we'll play that clip here in just a moment. In 741 snaps last year, 73.7 overall PFF grade, really good pass blocker at that size, light feet, and he can move pretty well for being a massive, massive cat. Run blocking grade of 69.4. He does look pretty good getting out in space to that second and third level, but his technique can be cleaned up a little bit. 3 sacks allowed, 8 penalties. The pressure numbers given up, not bad. The hurry numbers given up, 8. Keep in mind, not playing with the best quarterback in college football within that NC State program. And when I talked to Belton at the NFL Combine, I asked him, and I told him, right, this is an Eagles organization that really, really values offensive linemen. Howie Roseman calls it an unhealthy obsession, and they have one of the best offensive line coaches in the entire National Football League, and this is already an offensive line that is loaded with a couple of All-Pros, Pro Bowlers, and Lane Johnson, a potential future Hall of Famer.
It was a good conversation.
You have a top 30 visit set up with the Philadelphia Eagles. How did that conversation come about?
I just found out yesterday, so I just talked with my agent. We're just recapping how the week been going, how meetings went, formals and stuff. But I found out last night that I got the visit with the Eagles in April.
To get informed about that, knowing that they won the Super Bowl, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, it's crazy, especially just all the offensive linemen they got there, seeing what they do. Because I watched a lot of tape of NFL, just seeing what they did this past year when it came to protecting Jalen Hurts, running the ball. They had a phenomenal year. So just seeing what they have been building is pretty crazy, seeing that on TV.
How familiar are you with Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata?
I'm very familiar. We watch a lot with Coach 2J. He's big on try to watching tape, learning from the best. So I've always watched their tape and just seeing how, because both of them top divisions, seeing how different things when it comes to pass setting, like a lot of with Lane Johnson, like a lot of him hiding his run tails and stuff like that, his standstill. So just trying to see what they do and try to implement it in your game, really.
Earlier this week, Howie Roseman called his team-building philosophy along the trenches a healthy obsession. What's your reaction to that?
I like it, man. It's all start up front. You gotta the trench work, man. We trench money, so it all start up front, man. You gotta get your trench money to protect the guys that matter in the back.
And for Belton and the relative athletic score grade there, he's in the green. A lot of good here. 8.14 overall grade. 6'6", 330-plus pounds. Are you kidding me? With the 40-yard dash at 5.28. So he's in the yellow there, but you have to factor in he ran that speed at that size. Jalen Travis started his college career at Oklahoma State. Then he transferred to Iowa State, more than 1,400 snaps at left tackle, 501 at right tackle. So he's that tackle versatility here. I know the Eagles signed Kendall Lamb, who is 32 years old and can fulfill that backup swing tackle role. Darian Kennard is going to be a part of that competition as well, but the Eagles could use some youth at that offensive tackle spot for a player to develop. For Travis, he had an RAS score of 991, 6'7", nearly 340 pounds, clocked a 5.14 40-yard dash, and look at the vertical leap, 35 inches, and the broad jump north of 9 feet. And I want to reiterate here, Howie Roseman loves building in the trenches. So while you might not think it's sexy to go offensive line in round 1 at 32, it is always in play for Philadelphia. Before we continue to push forward, be sure to give me a follow on X and Instagram. You can find me on both social media platforms at Chase_Senior, reaching millions of people per month on Instagram, millions of people per month on X. Put out plenty of Eagles content over there, so hit me up. Maxwell Hairston's a really interesting player, cornerback, and we know that the Eagles lost Darius Slay and Isaiah Rodgers in free agency. I think the Eagles are very high on Keely Ringo, rightfully so. Very high on Eli Ricks. He too has a lot of potential. And the Eagles did sign Adoree Jackson to a 1-year contract in free agency, but it should never sway you from a youth movement. This is partially why the Eagles are so loaded right now and why their roster was so good when they won the Super Bowl, because Howie Roseman has drafted so well. And so if a player like Hairston is on the board, you love the value, you love the player, you go after him, and you figure out the depth and the role a little bit later. He did only play 7 games last year for Kentucky because of a shoulder injury, but in those 7 games, 5 pass breakups, 1 pick, allowed a quarterback rating when targeted of 78.2. He was thrown toward 22 times, gave up 12 catches, 0 touchdowns in coverage. What I like about him, in 32 career games played, 16 pass breakups, 6 interceptions, and 3 touchdowns. So he is a big-time playmaker with good instincts, with an ability to make plays on the football. He also ran very well at the NFL Combine. If I'm not mistaken, it was the fastest time among all players in Indianapolis, a 4.28. The size, it's fine. I know that MathBomb has it in the yellow and the red there. 5'11", 183 at that cornerback spot. I worry more about your instincts, your ability to make plays on the football, and your speed, because those traits are very important at that cornerback spot. Now we shift gears to Elijah Roberts, defensive end out of Southern Methodist. He is a day 2, day 3 player, not a first-round option in my eyes. 6'3", 285 though, so has a lot of size. At 285, ran a 4.78. I think teams would really like him to run a little bit faster. And then Boston College's own Donovan Ezeruku, there's some really good production here. And you look at the pressure numbers the last 3 years in particular. While at Boston College playing in the ACC, that's a good conference, 60 pressures and 16.5 sacks in 2024. The year prior, the sack numbers were nowhere close to that, but he had 34 pressures. And then in 2022, the sack numbers did go in a positive direction, 7.5 with 35 pressures. So that's 3 straight years of a lot of production as far as making an impact of getting to the quarterback. 35 pressures as a sophomore, 34 as a junior, and 60 as a senior, as everything really came together in his final year in college football. What's concerning about him? This is a player who, this is a classic example of them, the tape looks better than what the athletic testing was. Only 6'2", 248, so some teams might not like the lack of weight there. He did not run the 40-yard dash. What's good, though? Again, short area quickness. That's really important at the line of scrimmage. Once that ball gets snapped, how quickly are you? How quickly can you win your matchups? And the vertical leap, 35.5 inches. The broad, 9 feet 11 inches. That's in the green there. The RAS score, I think, docked a little bit because he didn't run the 40. The lack of size, a little bit of a concern. But the tape does not lie for this player here. Tyler Barron, you look at what he's been able to do in his career. 5.5 sacks in 2024, 48 pressures. 6 sacks in 2023, 41 pressures. 2.5 sacks in 2022, 29 pressures. And even in his first year at Tennessee, before he transferred, obviously, to Miami for his final year, 4 sacks and 32 pressures. He graded out well athletically with the testing in Indianapolis, 9.3 relative athletic score grade, and he's bigger than Ezeruku, 6'4", 258 pounds, and he was able to run a 4.62 40-yard dash. Maybe the most intriguing player to a lot of people on this list, as far as the pre-draft visits for Philadelphia, is Texas running back Jaden Blue. I know that the Eagles signed Saquon Barkley to a contract extension, and they gave him a lot of guaranteed money. Record and average annual value, record guaranteed money. I know that Will Shipley is a backup. I know that they signed A.J. Dillon. I like Will Shipley. I like the addition of A.J. Dillon as a short yardage back. But the Eagles have an opportunity here to draft another playmaker, and here's the benefit of where the Eagles are. They don't have a lot of needs on this roster, so they can afford to go with a player like this very early who's a home run hitter for this offense. And as we know, shelf life for running backs, it's not long. Saquon Barkley's 28, is going to be 29 around this time next year, you always have to plan ahead and have contingency plans. That's what good businesses do. That's what good organizations do. And I love the game of Blue. I also like his versatility as a player. He can run it, of course. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. In 2024, 134 carries, 730 yards, 5.4 yards per carry, 42 catches for 368 yards. 14 total touchdowns, does have a little bit of a fumbling issue. And that is a problem for me that can be cleaned up, though, ball security-wise, with quality coaching. His career numbers really didn't break out until his final season with Texas, and this is after the Longhorns had a lot of injuries at that position, but then Blue really took advantage of his opportunities, like the receiving ability, and the Eagles value the receiving ability in their running backs. LaShawn McCoy, Brian Westbrook, Saquon Barkley, Will Shipley, Kenneth Gainwell. Over time, the Eagles have brought in, drafted, and developed a lot of running backs who can be utilized in the pass game, and of course, they have the vision, the athleticism, and the running talent as a running back. And then there's Charles Grant, who is from William & Mary, obviously small school level, but the Eagles have done such a good job of identifying some of these small school players or under-the-radar players and banking on their coaching staff and player development factory to maximize these types of players. Jalix Hunt, nobody thought he was going to be a third-round pick. The Eagles took Jordan Mailata late in the draft. Nobody even knew who he was. All we saw on draft day, on day 3 that year, 2018, was rugby highlights. So Charles Grant is a player who had a 90.7 Pro Football Focus grade last year for William & Mary, gave up 2 sacks, 1 hit, 6 hurries, 7 penalties. I don't think he's going to be able to play right away at a high level, but again, what have I said a couple of times here on this show? A Jeff Stoutland developmental project. If you want some more draft talk, I have you covered. We do it all here on Eagles Now because I believe this is the standard for Eagles talk right here on YouTube. Nobody does it like we do it. Nobody steps like we step. So hit that subscribe button right now. And nobody gets super chats like we do. Jonathan E. Frog with the $500 super chat a little bit earlier. And then Peter Thurmond with the 20. What's good, fam? Hope all is well, my guy Peter. One of the biggest, most real ones here on the show.
Yes, sir.
Joe Lord is as well, Chip. $5 super chat. Chase, can you do a shout out for my dad? He passed on Friday, was a huge Eagles fan. Joe Sr. will be cheering our birds on from above. Fly, Joe, fly. Fly, Joe, fly. Very sorry to hear about your loss. Thoughts, prayers with you, positive vibes being sent in your direction as well. I know it's very sad. I lost my mom a few years ago, but Joe Lord, here's the positive. Your dad was a huge Eagles fan. At least he got to see the only 2 Super Bowls in franchise history while he was still alive. So thinking about the Lord family, R.I.P. Joe Sr., fly Joe fly, fly Eagles fly, and now he's flying above watching all of us and watching the Eagles continuing to take flight. So everybody type R.I.P. down in the comment section right now. Joe Lord, he's been supporting the show for a really long time. All right, who else is in the comment section here? I see Joe Lord again, John Gizakowski, Tuna Zuka, Philly 416, Taz, X, Carol Hosey in the building. Always good to see some real ones hanging out. All right, we will be doing a mailbag segment number 3. Hashtag Eagles or send in a super chat. We have segment number 2 coming up. But Chip, are we going to be able to do a mailbag? What's the status?
It's up to the people, man. Currently where we stand, Carol's got a question in.
All right.
Cool Reigns has a question in.
Okay.
That is it.
Okay.
2 questions. We can't run a mailbag with 2 questions, man.
Hey, we need more than 2 questions if you want us to continue to hang out and do a mailbag. So get those questions in right now. Use the hashtag Eagles or send in a super chat. Let's shift gears to segment number 2. I want to take a look at 6 free agents who the Philadelphia Eagles could still sign in free agency, and we're going to run that here in just a moment. Shout out to the recent commenter club, Cool Reigns, Drakeford, X, Carol Hosey, Chell Raw, Kane Angel, Peter Thurman, Smitty, I'll type an RIP for Joe Lord Sr. 240 people watching live right now. John Gizikowski, who would trade for Bryce Huff? That's a great question, but use the hashtag Eagles. Why we ask you to do that or send in a super chat is because so many comments come in throughout the live show. So when you use hashtag Eagles, Chip can put up a filter, and then all of those mailbag questions are in a bucket for him to choose from. All right, top free agents available. Let's get it cracking. Yo, what's good? Welcome into the show. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now. My name is Chase Sr. Thanks for hanging out here with us. What I want to do today is take a look at 6 free agents who the Philadelphia Eagles could sign, and we know that Howie Roseman has his eyes peeled on some players who he could add to this roster. Here he is in Indianapolis a few years ago at the NFL Combine, I believe, or maybe during a game with binoculars. And in looking for this picture, because when I was thinking about Howie Roseman trying to improve this roster, I racked my brain and I remembered this photo. And in looking for this photo, I searched Howie Roseman binoculars. I came across this article that I wanted to share with the people to give you a laugh from all the way back in 2021. This was right after the Eagles had signed Nick Sirianni and hired him to be their next head coach in replacing Doug Peterson. And look at the headline of this article. I'm giving up jerking off until the Eagles demote Howie Roseman. I'm really curious how this guy is doing, how this writer is faring, if he's gone all this time without masturbating, or if he gave up on that promise, because what have the Eagles done since 2021? They've made the playoffs every year. That season in 2021, they made the playoffs, first year in a rebuild under Sirianni. They won 14 games, got the number 1 seed in 2022, should have won the Super Bowl. In 2023, won double-digit games in a down year. And then this past year, 14 wins again, and their second Super Bowl since 2017. So that writer making a bold statement, does anybody know how that writer is doing nowadays? I thought that was hilarious. Had to share it with all of you. Back on track here. Let's get serious. Biggest remaining needs for Philadelphia, and this will segue us in to 6 free agent players who the Eagles could sign to add to this roster. Well-known veterans, too, who we're about to talk about here. I'd say the safety position is at the top of that list just because Philadelphia traded away C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They really like Sidney Brown, but what's the depth? Tristan McCullum? That's why I think the Eagles need to at least bring in a veteran, and I imagine they're going to sign a safety early in the draft. Could the Eagles add a Justin Simmons type? We'll talk about him here on this show. Defensive tackle, another need. And there's a big date looming, May 2nd. That's the deadline for Philadelphia to exercise the 5th-year option on Jordan Davis. I'm very high on Moro Ojomo. Jordan Davis really started to come on last year. It's a big year for him coming up. But after the Eagles lost Milton Williams, who was a dominant player, second highest graded pass rushing defensive tackle in the NFL, defensive tackle is a need. Linebacker. I'm curious what the Eagles' plans and thoughts are here. They let Oren Burks go. I thought they were going to bring him back because he got a 2-year, $5 million deal with the Cincinnati Bengals. The Eagles, of course, retained Zach Bond, giving him $34 million in guaranteed money. But I thought Burks was going to be back because with that knee injury that Nakobe Dean suffered, tore patellar tendon, there was some chatter that he wasn't going to be back until the midway point of next year at the earliest. But clearly, I think the Eagles think that he can be back earlier, or they really like Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and then offensive line depth, always a big need for Howie Roseman and this organization because they firmly believe you build your football teams inside out, and I believe that's the best way to build a football roster. So with that, we flip the page to the top free agents left who can make sense for the Birds in free agency. And let's begin with the future Hall of Famer here in Calais Campbell. Calais Campbell, his durability at his size is incredible to me. He is 38 years old. He is 300 pounds. And he's still playing at a really high level. Of course, one of the more respected veterans in the National Football League. He was the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year in 2019. He's won a Community Award in 2024. And he was a team captain his lone season with the Dolphins last year. And last year, he played in all 17 games. He had 52 tackles as a rotational defensive lineman, had 12 TFLs, 5 sacks, 12 quarterback hits, and 5 pass breakups. This is a player who was the Pro Football Writers of Association Defensive Player of the Year in 2017. First team All-Pro that year as well. Second team All-Pro in 2014 and 2016. A 6-time Pro Bowler and a member of the NFL 2010s All-Decade team. And in his last 4 years, you have seen that production remain pretty consistent. Last 3 seasons, 5.5 sacks, 6.5 sacks, 5 sacks. And I think it's important for Philadelphia to address defensive tackle and defensive line in general, edge and along the interior in the NFL draft. But it can never hurt to bring in a veteran leader like that in Campbell who can still play and be a great mentor for some of these young players on this Eagles roster. Julian Blackmon is a very intriguing option at the safety position. I don't think he's going to break the bank with his new contract. He's still a young player who's a former third-round pick, came into the league with pedigree, and he's played pretty good football in his career to start. And I'm actually surprised up to this point that his market's been as slow as it's been. In 2024, 86 tackles on that back end, 1 TFL, clearly more of a coverage guy, 4 pass breakups and 7 picks. When you can combine for 7 there, that's not bad. He was targeted 23 times. He did give up 19 completions for 374 yards and 2 touchdowns. The quarterback rating when targeted, 108.2. Part of the reason why his value is down a little bit, but you're asking Julian Blackmon to come in, cheap deal, resurrect his career, serve as safety depth, and a player who can get some snaps from time to time, week in and week out, who has ability. 12 pass breakups in the last 2 seasons, and a pretty solid tackler. Blackmon is also only 26 years old. So whereas Calais Campbell is 38, Blackmon's 26. And players come to Philadelphia to resurrect their careers because they trust this coaching staff and their ability to develop players. And Sirianni has familiarity with Julian Blackmon too. He was a 3rd-round pick when Sirianni was on the staff in 2020 as the offensive coordinator under Frank Reich. Third free agent here is a player who we've talked about a lot in the past, mostly last offseason because I was advocating for the Eagles to sign Justin Simmons. Reed Blankenship ended up having a fantastic year and is a leader on this Eagles team. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I wanted the Eagles to bring him back, but I just thought Philadelphia could have used Justin Simmons as a depth piece with Sidney Brown coming off that torn ACL. He went to the Atlanta Falcons, and he had a little bit of a down year for a Falcons defense as a whole that really struggled. 62 tackles, 7 pass breakups, 2 picks, 2 TFLs. Why we keep talking about Justin Simmons here, especially this offseason, he first of all said that the Eagles are high on his list for places to go to. He played under Vic Fangio and Christian Parker, the Eagles defensive backs coach, who's looked at as a rising star when he was with the Denver Broncos. And in his Broncos career, Justin Simmons was a 4-time second-team All-Pro, a top 5 safety for basically his entire tenure with Denver. He has been a pass breakup machine, a center field ball-hawking safety who also plays with really good feel and really good instincts. Bring him in on a cheap deal. I think that he could play well. He knows this system, and if Sidney Brown doesn't work out, you know that you can rely on Justin Simmons alongside Reed Blankenship. Both of those players, by the way, can make plays on the rock. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. We talk Eagles draft. We talk Eagles free agency. We do it all here on the program. So lock us in, hit that subscribe button as we close in on 120,000 subscribers. Our sponsor for today's show, our friends at Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy, and the best daily fantasy sports app in the game. That's evidenced by them having more than 10 million active members, and they've given out more than $1 billion in awarded winnings. Right now, when you use that link down below, prizepicks.com/CLNS, and you play $5, you get $50 instantly. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed, and you can withdraw your winnings all within the app. Some future football picks that we like. Obviously, college basketball is humming right now. and baseball season is about to get underway. Basketball playoffs around the corner. Jared Goff, we're going to go less on the passing yards there. Travis Kelce, less on the receiving yards. And then Jaden Daniels, I think he throws it a little bit more and wants to stay healthy. Less on the rushing yards. Pick more, pick less. Run your game with Prize Picks. prizepicks.com/CLNS. Get $50 when you play 5. Eagles have some familiarity with this player in Kaiser White. He was the starting linebacker for the Eagles when they made it to the Super Bowl back in 2022, and then he followed Jonathan Gannon to the Arizona Cardinals when Gannon took the head coaching job there. And Kaiser White is a player who, the theme of this list, all of these players are affordable. The Eagles don't want to break the bank with any of these signings, and that's why they all make sense for Philadelphia. If these veterans want an opportunity to chase after a Super Bowl, they could come to the Eagles. And Kaiser White, the Eagles need linebacker depth. If you need him to start, great. If he's a depth option, that's fantastic news because he's a viable depth option. And I like how he can make plays against the run. He can make plays against the pass, and he is a trusted tackler. 137 tackles last year, 9 TFLs. Not the best in coverage, but he can at least survive there. And you look at what he's done in his last 4 years, he has more than 100 tackles in 3 of those 4 years. So you can at least trust him to take down ball carriers as an off-ball coverage linebacker. So on a 1-year deal, worth little money, Kaiser White is a player who you have familiarity with, who you know what he can be for your Eagles defense. I'd take a flyer on him coming back to Philadelphia for a cheap price. Stephon Gilmore, potential future Hall of Famer, former Defensive Player of the Year. He played good football last year for Minnesota. He played good football the year before that with the Dallas Cowboys. Is he the player who he was with the Patriots when he won Defensive Player of the Year? No. Is he a lockdown corner any longer? No. He's past that, but he could still be a very good outside corner. And the Eagles do have some depth concerns depending on who you ask at that cornerback position. And last year, look at what he was able to do for Minnesota. That was one of the best defenses in the NFL with one of the top defensive coordinators in the game in Brian Flores. 9 pass breakups, 1 pick. Now, what he did in 2019 when he won Defensive Player of the Year, it was incredible. That was his 2nd straight year with 20 pass breakups. He had 2 pick sixes. He had 6 interceptions that year. We're a long way removed from that. But when he's been able to stay healthy the last 3 years, in 2022 with the Colts, 11 pass breakups. In 2023 with the Cowboys, 13. And last year, he had 9 more. So he still wants to play. He's not a player who's going to cash in on a monster contract. Obviously, I think a lot of these veterans are going to wait to see what happens in the NFL draft. The Eagles are fine with that. These veterans are fine with that. And then the Eagles will have an opportunity to reassess things, identifying what needs they still have following the draft and which players they're able to bring in. Jedrick Wills, for any offensive lineman with pedigree who wants to get his career back on track, a lot of offensive linemen are always looking at the Eagles. Jedrick Wills was drafted 10th overall by the Cleveland Browns back in the 2020 draft. And in year 1, played 15 games and started 15 of them. Year 2, had 13 starts in 13 games. Year 3, played in 17 games, started every one of them. The last 2 years, though, he's only played in 8 games and 5 games. He started every one of those except for 1, but the play has been inconsistent, and he's been very injury-prone. But when he was in college, everybody thought he was going to be a sure thing. The PFF grades last year, not good. But with Jeff Stoutland, you hope that you can maximize the player here, and he'd be a depth piece. 52.9 overall grade, pass blocking grade in the green at 63.6. Not a good run blocking grade. Had 7 penalties and gave up 3 sacks. To do all of that in 5 games, it is not ideal. 5 hurries in those 5 games as well. But Deshaun Watson was also holding on to the ball forever, and he was a mess at the quarterback spot for Cleveland. So pick a free agent that you want the Eagles to sign. We just ran through 6 players. Pick one, pick multiple. You can do whatever you want. We just appreciate you for hanging out here on the show. Emmanuel Henderson. Emmanuel. 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 $20 super chat. Who is your best prospect in this year's draft? My favorite player is Abdul Carter. I think that he is going to be a high-level impact player at that edge rusher spot if he stays healthy for the next 8 to 10 years. When I'm taking a player number one, I want them to contribute right away. I want them to have freakish ability. I want them to have a lot of talent. Want to continue to mold them and develop them. I want them to love football. I want them to have good character. I want them to have longevity. And I think Abdul Carter is going to be a very good player in this league for nearly a decade if he can stay healthy. Twitch, bend, size at that edge rusher spot, a natural feel and ability at that position. This was his first year that he played edge rusher at Penn State, and he dominated in 2024. So he's my favorite player. Another player who I love is Armand Membu out of Missouri. He's not my favorite or best prospect in this year's draft, but I think he's the best offensive lineman in this class. Didn't love the testing numbers for Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan, but I like him. Love the versatility of Jalen Walker. I think Cam Ward is QB1, and he's QB1 by a lot. I think Travis Hunter is going to be able to play at a high level at both positions, wide receiver and cornerback at the next level. For the Eagles, I love Walter Nolan at 32. And so some draft thoughts I'm rattling off for you, Emmanuel Henderson. That's what happens when you send in a super chat or ask a good question. My guy. All right. How are we doing with the mailbag questions? Do we have enough?
So, I think we need like one or two more, but honestly, Joe Lord came in with a question. We had that one from Emmanuel. Skeptic with a question. Carol Hosey, Cool Rains.
That's awesome.
Got about 6, 7 questions, so
all right.
I think we should be good to swing it here.
We
do
do
have
have
room
some-
for a couple more, though.
Yes,
So.
I was going to say, sorry to step on Chip's toes. We have some room for some more questions. We're about to embark on this mailbag right now. Use the hashtag Eagles or send in a super chat. That's hashtag Eagles, send in a super chat. You include that within your question or your statement, your hot take, your analysis, and we'll get you featured here on the program. If you send in a super chat, you can skip the line, and we'll answer your questions first. I saw my guy Buddy Bear in the chat. Why trade C.J. Gardner-Johnson? Don't you win Super Bowls with him and not win them without him? Yeah, I was not a fan of that trade. You know, he's been the heart and soul, really good leader for that Eagles defense. He brings a swagger and ball hawking ability to that Eagles secondary. The 2 years he's been with the Eagles, they've made it to a Super Bowl and nearly won, and then won the second go-around. And he's a tremendous player. So I was not a fan of trading him away. I know that they're trying to clear up some money to maybe extend a Reed Blankenship at that safety spot specifically. Also keep in mind that they have to give a contract extension to Cam Jurgens and Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and Jordan Davis potentially. A lot of other young players who are set to get paid, but you could have had C.J. Gardner-Johnson for one more year. And Sidney Brown is a pretty big unknown, opposite of Reed Blankenship. All right, let's answer your questions right now. Still get those questions in. Hashtag Eagles or send in a super chat, and let's run it up. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles now. My name is Chase Sr. Hope everybody out there is having a fantastic weekend. That's when this mailbag is going to run and coming up here on the show. Taking questions from our viewers, subscribers, and real ones as we look ahead to the NFL draft. We talk free agency. We look ahead to the 2025 season. That and a whole lot more. Before we take your questions and chop it up, and I always love opening up the floor and being able to have great football conversations with all of you, let's keep dominating. Philadelphia Eagles now, for many months here consecutively, has been one of the most viewed, most trafficked, most popular Eagles channels on YouTube. And we're already approaching 120,000 subscribers. We got past 100K in the divisional round. Crazy growth. Millions of people are watching the show every single month. Our views are just off the chain right now. So with today's show, you see that we're sitting at 117,130 subscribers. How many more subs can we pick up on this video alone? Hit that subscribe button. Lock us in if you want daily coverage of the birds, and I promise you, you won't regret it. Emmanuel Henderson gets us started with this $20 super chat. Who is your best prospect in this year's draft? So I'm just going to go overall NFL draft, and then we'll talk about some prospects for the Philadelphia Eagles here. My favorite overall player in the 2025 draft class is Abdul Carter out of Penn State. I think what he was able to do in his first year playing edge rusher full-time was incredible. And he has a natural feel for the position. He has the speed, burst, twitch, pass rushing arsenal of moves, and knack for getting after the quarterback that can make him a dominant player at the NFL level. And I just think that he's going to be a very good pro if he's able to stay healthy for a really long time. His game, his style of play just translates to the next level. And the numbers that he put up at Penn State, going up against some really talented offensive linemen, week in and week out pretty much, was really impressive. And then in the college football playoff, he's dealing with that shoulder injury, and it didn't bother him at all. So he's my favorite player in this entire draft class. My favorite player as of right now, with about a month to go until the NFL draft, for the Eagles at 32, might be Walter Nolan. Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss is a defensive tackle who, coming out of high school, was a #1 overall recruit in the country. He is very explosive and violent at the line of scrimmage. I really like his motor. Always plays to the whistle and sometimes through it. He's really good with quickness to beat interior offensive linemen as a pass rusher. He needs to refine his moves there a little bit, but he's also really good against the run. And if you're thinking about a Milton Williams type of comp or prototype, Walter Nolan has a lot of those same traits. So favorite overall player, Abdul Carter. Favorite player right now for the Eagles, given importance of the position, need, what you lost, and potential, Walter Nolan. I also really like Malachi Starks at that safety spot. Next up, Cool Rains. Thoughts on the rumors that Dak Prescott might be getting traded to the Cleveland Browns. So this was a story that really took off this week, that the Browns are closing in on a trade for Dak Prescott. And it came from, I believe, a former radio host in Cleveland who now is a little bit older and has his own YouTube channel. And I'm going to just pull up some information here on the fly so that I can fully fill everybody in. First of all, there's nothing to this. And here's why. And I'll give you a couple of reasons why. Dak Prescott's contract that he signed going into last year includes a no trade clause, a no franchise tag clause, and a no transition tag clause. It also has 4 void years from 2029 through 2032. The contract, which had 1 year left at $29 million, has $129 million fully guaranteed at signing, and another $40 million is fully guaranteed by March of 2025. And the report came from Bruce Drennan, who said that the Browns are working towards a trade for Dak Prescott. He said he had sources inside the Browns building that were telling him that. But given the dead money, the no trade clause, there's no way Dak Prescott, who, by the way, is building a new house in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, just signed that deal, is now going to waive his no trade clause to go to the Cleveland Browns. And for the Cowboys and the dead money charge, it doesn't make a lot of sense either. Because let me see exactly what the dead money charge is, if I can pull it up really quickly. I'm pretty sure it might be over like $100 million is what I believe I saw. And so it just doesn't make sense for Dallas. It doesn't make sense for Dak. It doesn't make sense for Cleveland. If you're the Browns and you're at number 2, why don't you just reset the quarterback clock? You're already paying Deshaun Watson. I know Andrew Berry has pulled off some financial gymnastics there, but that contract in the trade has been a disaster. And just draft Shedeur Sanders at number 2, because I think Cam Ward is going number 1. And that's also why it makes no sense that Myles Garrett signed that contract. It made no sense. But he said it was all about winning. It was all about the cash. Emmanuel Henderson, again, $20. Who is the best prospect at tight end if the Eagles trade Dallas Goedert or release him? Do you think the Eagles are going to draft a wide receiver in the later rounds? I think they could draft a wide receiver in the later rounds. They, of course, took Johnny Wilson and Anaya Smith last year. Both players got some playing time on a team that won the Super Bowl. So if they can make leaps in their development, you have them. You have Jahan Dotson under contract. Obviously, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith both signed contract extensions last year. So I think you're good at that wide receiver spot. Maybe they take a chance on a wide receiver in the late rounds. I will say it is a very thin and weak wide receiver class. So that combined with the Eagles being set at that position, maybe they don't go that route. As far as tight ends to replace Dallas Goedert with, if the Eagles trade him or release him, it's an awesome tight end class. It's headlined by Tyler Warren out of Penn State, who has a big body like Gronk, but can pick up yards after the catch with angry runs like George Kittle. And he has positional versatility that's extremely rare. When he was at Penn State, he lined up as a Wildcat quarterback. He lined up as a center. He lined up as a fullback, H-back, slot receiver. He lined up out wide. He is an incredibly unique and special player. And if there's any way that Tyler Warren falls in the middle of the first round, I'm honestly, if I'm Howie Roseman, debating on trading 32 and a future first or a second to move up to take Tyler Warren. Because I think that he can be one of the best tight ends in the NFL starting year one. He would be a cost-controlled player for the next 5 years if you exercise that fifth-year option. He'd be very affordable, much cheaper than Dallas Goedert if you trade Goedert away, who has a cap hit this upcoming season in the range of $11, $12, $13 million, and the rich would get richer. So Tyler Warren, best tight end in this class. Colston Loveland out of Michigan, probably tight end too. Players who are more realistic to the Eagles, if they trade out of 32, if they reach for a tight end at 32, Mason Taylor out of LSU had a really good pro day. He ran very well. Elijah Arroyo out of Miami is a seam stretching tight end. Harold Fannin played at Bowling Green State. The Eagles hired Scott Laughlin as their quarterbacks coach, who was the head coach for Fannin at Bowling Green State, and he had more than 100 catches. But he's more of a tweener. I don't think he's a natural tight end. I think he's more of a fullback. And so those are some of the best tight ends in this class. And I think they're all in play for Philadelphia, probably outside of Tyler Warren. Eagles Super Bowl gear, I have mine on. It's available for you to get yourselves. And if you've already gotten some, get some more. I know I've put in a couple of orders already. You know what link I use? That one down below. chatsports.com/EaglesSB. You know what it stands for? Eagles Super Bowl, because the Eagles are Super Bowl champions. I'm trying not to be obnoxious, but no one likes us. We don't care. And the Eagles are Super Bowl 59 champions. I'll never forget that night. You won't either. So celebrate it with some great gear. You use that link down below. It takes you to our friends at Fanatics. They then know that Chase Sr., your boy, your fearless leader, and Chat Sports and Eagles Now sent you. They have everything you need. Hats, shirts, hoodies, jerseys, memorabilia. chatsports.com/EaglesSB. That's where I got this shirt. Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl MVP. Cowboys fans, suck it. X, is Justin Simmons worth the contract? Justin Simmons isn't going to sign for that much money. He is not the 4-time second-team All-Pro that he used to be. And I think his play last year backed that up. He's a player who is declining a little bit, but he's a player who can still really play. He can get by with being a cerebral safety, having a high football IQ, playing with feel and instincts. It also helps that he knows this Vic Fangio defense like the back of his hand. Why? Well, Vic Fangio coached him for multiple seasons when Fangio was the head coach of the Broncos. Christian Parker, the Eagles defensive backs coach, was also on that staff. So Justin Simmons said himself a couple of weeks ago, the Eagles are high on the list of teams that he's looking at joining and signing with in free agency. And it won't be for a fat contract. It will be very affordable. Skeptic Forum Do you think the Eagles should get Julian Blackmon? Will they draft the safety? Look, Malachi Starks is a really good player. Malachi Moore out of Alabama is a player who the Eagles met with formally at the NFL Combine. He'd be available a little bit later. I think that even if the Eagles sign a Justin Simmons or sign a Julian Blackmon, that's Julian Blackmon or Justin Simmons. Let's just say a veteran, right? Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown, Tristan McCullum. 4 safeties on the roster. You can still draft another safety and be fine. If that veteran doesn't sign for that much, you cut him. If you don't like Tristan McCullum, you can let him go. Although some people inside that building are very high on Tristan McCullum. But you have some flexibility there with what you can do. Joe Lord, thoughts on Moro Ajomo? I thought he made strides last year. I think that he can easily replace Milton Williams. I like Moro Ajomo a lot. I liked him as a late-round pick coming out of Texas. He is a similar player to Milton Williams who has pass-rushing chops. But Milton Williams, while he was the second highest-graded pass-rushing defensive tackle in football last year, he was not good against the run. Moro Ajomo is good at getting after the quarterback. He's a little bit better against the run. Moro Ajomo last year had an 82.6 pass rush grade. So Milton Williams was second. Moro Ajomo was fifth. He had an overall grade of 68. That was 39th among 219 interior defensive linemen. His run defense grade was 54.7. He had 26 hurries and 31 pressures in 268 pass rush snaps. If he gets up to 500, those numbers can skyrocket. Now, he didn't have any sacks in the regular season, but you saw him in the Super Bowl. We've seen his growth as a player. He can be really good. And I think that's part of the reason why the Eagles let Milton Williams go, because they think that Ajomo is a really quality player, an asset who's under contract for 2 more years. What do you think? What is the biggest need on this Philadelphia Eagles roster? Comment down below. Share your thoughts with me. And as always, thanks for watching. Awesome show here today. We're up to $565 in Super Chats. Jonathan Efrog with the 500 a little bit earlier. How about it? We had some great questions, some great conversations, a good audience here on this Wednesday. Most importantly, we gave you some really good content. So, shows to come every single day for the rest of the week. Chip and I, we are going to sign off. Jonathan Efrog, thank you so much for that big-time Super Chat.
Yes, sir.
We really appreciate that. And we're going to get you sent some jerseys, of course, from free agency. We're going to send you that Eagles tapestry as well, as you continue to be an absolute legend here on the show. Hit me up on X and Instagram at Chase_Senior. If you haven't subscribed, you ain't alive. Hit that sub button right now. I see Jonathan Efrog saying yeet down in the comment section. Can't thank you enough, man. Cool Rains, Aussie, oi, oi, oi. Am I excited for Major League Baseball? Yes, I am. Last year, I probably watched 80 to 90% of all Phillies games. I know stock is down a little bit on the Phillies, but I'll be watching Philly Productions. Let's go Phils. You already know. Ring the bell. Go Birds. No one likes us. We don't care. We out.